hypersleep voyager. Tonight, we drift far beyond the edge of our world, into the vast, silent dark. When you look up at the night, it seems peaceful, still. But hidden within that quiet tapestry is a realm of unimaginable weight, an ancient mystery born from the end of a sun. It is a place unseen by human eyes, a dense, spinning heart that hums with power. It works tirelessly, spinning through the eons, holding the secrets of the universe in a space no larger than a city. If you enjoy these quiet journeys into the unknown, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, just breathe, settle in. Let the noise of the day drift away and allow your eyes to grow heavy. Let's begin. Sometimes the rigid crust of this event is called a stellar shift. The perfect sphere adjusts itself. The spin changes slightly. It is a shift in the heavy shell. Think of an old house at night. The wood cools. The beams settle. You hear a sudden creak in the hallway. It is a sharp sound in the quiet. The house is not falling. It is finding a new posture. It is getting comfortable. The start is the same. The stress builds up. The crust slips. The tension is released into the void. The rhythm stumbles for a moment. Then it returns. The silence resumes. It is a reminder that even the most rigid things must sometimes yield a little to find their true balance. Deep inside the star friction, the neutrons become a superfluid. They flow without resistance. They do not lose energy. They move in perfect unison. There is no turbulence. Imagine water flowing through a glass pipe. Usually, it drags against the sides. Here, it does not drag. It slides perfectly. It flows forever. Think of your own life first moving through your veins. You do not feel it. It circulates quietly while you rest. It sustains you without effort. The core of the star is a silent ocean. It swirls but makes no sound. It moves but stays still. In this sense, we see that the purest form of the ocean is one that requires no struggle at all. Time moves slower near a neutron star. Gravity pulls on the seconds. It stretches them out. A few minutes on the surface equal years far away. The clock ticks heavily. It resists the flow. Imagine an easy Sunday afternoon. The sun is low. The house is quiet. The hour seems to last forever. You do not rush. The world outside moves fast. But in your room, time hangs in the air. It waits for you. The star lies in this slow lane. It watches the universe speed by. It exists in a deep well of time. It is not in a hurry. It has nowhere to go. You could say that when you possess great weight, the world waits for you. Below the crust, matter takes strange shapes. Physicists call this phase nuclear structure. The neutrons organize into sheets and tubes. They are squeezed into dense layers. It is the strongest material known. It is woven and packed. Imagine kneading heavy dough. You fold it over. You press it down. The layers merge. The texture changes. It becomes tough. The star compresses its own substance. It weaves a thick fabric of particles. It creates order under pressure. We cannot see these shapes. They are buried deep. They are hidden by the iron shell, but they hold the star together. This reveals that the most intricate structures are often hidden deep beneath the plain and simple surface. They orbit an orbital star. Gravity pulls gas from the neighbor. The gas spirals in. It falls onto the neutron star. It adds to the weight. Imagine sharing a blanket. You pull it slowly toward you. It slides across the bed. It gathers around your shoulders. You become warmer. The star gathers this material. It wraps itself in a new layer. The gas flows in a steady stream. It connects the two objects. One gives, one takes. The cycle continues in the dark. The bond is invisible but strong. Here's a reminder that nothing exists in total isolation, for we are always influenced by what is near us. To leave a neutron star, you must move fast. You must reach half the speed of light. Anything slower falls back down. The escape is almost impossible. The hold is too tight. It does not want to let go. Imagine walking through deep, wet mud. Your boots sink. The earth holds your ankles. You lift one foot. It takes effort. You put it down. It sinks again. You are tethered to the ground. The star creates a well of gravity. It captures light. It captures dust. It keeps everything close. It does not allow separation. In this sense, we see that some bonds are so deep that leaving becomes an impossibility. The star has an atmosphere. It is made of hot plasma, but it is incredibly thin. It is only a few centimeters deep. Below it lies the solid crust. Above it is the vacuum. Imagine a thin layer of frost on a window. It is delicate. It is barely there, but it covers the glass. It changes the view. Or think of a single sheet covering a mattress. It is a thin barrier. It separates the sleeper from the bed. The star is wrapped in this thin veil. It is a fragile skin on a heavy body. It glows softly. It hugs the surface. You could say that even the strongest entities need a gentle layer to meet the world. We cannot hear the star directly. There is no air in space to carry sound. But if we converted its spin, it would be a note. It would be a constant, low It would not waver. Imagine a large fan spinning in the next room. You hear the drone. It vibrates in the floorboards. It becomes part of the silence. But it is there. It is the sound of power at rest. The star sings this one note. It broadcasts it to the galaxy. It is a lullaby of physics. It vibrates through the cosmos. This reveals that the universe has a voice, even if we must listen very closely to hear it. Gravity bends light around the neutron star. This effect is so strong that you can see the back of the star while looking at the front. The light curves. It wraps around the sphere. It acts like a heavy glass lens. Imagine looking at a marble. You see the pattern on the other side through the glass. The light finds a way to reach you. It does not travel in a straight line. It flows like water around a stone. The image is complete. Nothing is hidden behind the horizon. The star reveals its whole self at once. It offers no secrets to the observer. It is open. It is exposed. It is a reminder that with the right perspective, obstacles disappear and the hidden becomes clear. Rare neutron stars are known as magnetars. Their magnetic fields are the strongest in the universe. They are unstable. They release vast invisible energy. If one was halfway to the moon, it would erase the data from every computer on Earth. It exerts force across empty space. It touches without contact. Think of static electricity on a dry day. You reach for a door handle. A spark jumps before you touch the metal. The ear snaps. The connection is made before you arrive. The magnetar reaches out. It commands the space around it. It dictates the rules of the void. It is dominant. It is unseen. In this sense, we see that true power extends far beyond the physical body. Sometimes two neutron stars meet. The meeting is called a kilonova. This event creates most of the gold in the universe. The metal in your ring was born in this event. It traveled across the galaxy. It condensed into the Earth. It was mined from the ground. Now it rests on your finger. It is cold. It is smooth. It is the ash of a quiet star. The intensity of the past is now a quiet ornament. It is still on your skin. It has finished its long journey. The chaos is forgotten. Only the beauty remains. This reveals that something precious can be the final result of a great transformation. There is a limit to how heavy a neutron star can be. If it gains too much mass, it yields. The neutrons cannot hold up the weight. The star transforms again. It becomes a black hole. It vanishes from sight. The surface disappears. The event horizon forms. Imagine standing on thin ice. It supports you. You add a heavy pack to your shoulders. The ice opens. It gives way. You slip into the deep water. The stars slips away. It leaves the known universe. It enters a place we cannot follow. It crosses the final line. It is gone. You could say that every structure has a breaking point where it must transform into something entirely new. Gravity wants to press the star into a single point. A force called quantum degeneracy stops it. The neutrons refuse to occupy the same space. They claim their territory. It is a stalemate. The force of the press meets the force of resistance. Imagine a crowded train. People are packed tight, but they do not merge. Each person holds their ground. Each person keeps their shape. There is tension, but there is stability. The star exists in this balance. It is a locked balance. It holds the weight of the world on its back. It does not shift. It is a reminder that simply holding your ground is an act of immense strength. A neutron star does not change easily. Once formed, it can endure for eons. It outlives the bright stars around it. It watches galaxies merge and fade. It is a monument to survival. The universe changes around it, but the star remains. Think of a large stone in a stream. The water rushes by. The seasons change. Leaves fall and dry. The stone stays. It is wet. It is cold. that it is moved by nothing. The star is that stone in the river of time. It is patient. It waits for the end. It is not anxious. In this sense, we see that to endure is to remain still while the world rushes past you. The star loses energy as it spins. Slowly, the rotation slows down. The lighthouse beam widens. The pulse becomes less frequent. It is a very gradual breaking. It takes millions of years. Imagine a child spinning top on a wooden floor. It hums. It spins fast. Then it begins to wobble. The sound drops in pitch. The motion becomes lazy. It prepares to stop. The star's winding down. It is retiring from its work. The active energy fades. It settles into a long, slow turn. It is becoming calm. This reveals that all activity eventually gives way to a necessary and peaceful rest. Even around these quiet stars, planets can form. The dust from the event gathers. It clumps together. New worlds are born in the shadows. They orbit the heavy remnant. They are bathed in radiation, but they exist. Imagine a flower growing in the crack of a concrete pavement. The ground is hard. The environment is harsh, but the green stem rises. It finds a way. The universe recycles everything. It wastes nothing. The end of a star becomes the ground for a planet. The cycle is a circle. Life follows the end. You could say that hope can take root in the most unlikely, unquiet places. Neutrinos carry away most of the star's early heat. These are silent particles. They have almost no mass. They pass through solid lead as if it were air. They escape the dense core instantly. The rock does not stop them. The crust does not slow them. Imagine a warm breeze passing through a screen door. The screen does not stop the air. The heat flows out. It leaves the house. The neutrinos leave the star. They fly into the void. They carry the burden of energy away. The star is relieved. It settles into a cooler state. It does not hold on to what it does not need. It allows itself to become comfortable. It is a reminder that true relief comes from letting go of the heat that weighs on us. The light leaving a neutron star must rise against the gravity. It spends energy to climb out of the well. As it climbs, the light becomes tired. Its color shifts towards red. It loses its high energy. It becomes soft. Imagine walking up a long, steep hill. You start fast, but the slope is hard. Your breath slows. Your steps become heavy. You reach the top, but you are moving slowly. The light reaches us in this slow state. It has paid a price to escape. It arrives gently. It is no longer bright. It has been tempered by the journey. In this sense, we see that the effort to overcome a heavy for softens softens our nature. Inside the core, protons may become superconductors. And this means electricity flows with RO resistance. There is no friction. There is no heat. The current simply moves. It can flow for 1 billion years without stopping. Think of a thought that stays in your mind. It does not change. It does not fade. It just sits there quietly. Or a wheel spinning in a vacuum. It turns without sound. It turns without effort. The energy is perfectly preserved. Nothing is wasted. The star maintains its power by removing the friction. It creates a perfect loop. You could say that when resistance is removed, energy can flow forever without effort. The superfluid interior is filled with tiny vortices. These are little whirlpools of rotation. Sometimes they get stuck to the crust. They pin the liquid to the solid shell. Then they break free. The stars, it spins faster for a moment. Imagine a log floating down a river. It gets caught on a rock. The water piles up behind it. Then the log slips free. It rushes forward. The river smooths out again. The star experiences this release. It is a small correction. It is a realignment of forces. The system clears the resistance. It returns to the steady hum. It reveals that small disruptions are often just the way a system corrects its own path. The magnetic poles of the star are not always at the top and bottom. They can be tilted. They are offset from the spin. As the star turns, the poles sweep through space. They're like hands on a clock face. They point to different hours. Imagine holding a flashlight while you spin in a chair. The beam moves across the walls. It lights up the ceiling. It lights up the floor. It touches everything in the room. The star does not keep its influence in one place. It shares its energy with the whole sky. It covers every angle. It turns in tones. It is a reminder that even a fixed object can touch the entire world if it is willing to move. Because gravity is so strong, a mountain on a neutron star is tiny. It cannot be higher than a few millimeters. Any higher, and the crust would shift. The weight would pull it down. The surface must remain flat. Imagine building a tower of sand on the beach. If you build too high, it crumbles. It slides back to the ground. The earth claims it. The star does not allow pride. It does not allow height. It enforces humility. Everything must stay low. Everything must stay level. The horizon is a perfect line. There are no peaks to climb. In this sense, we see that staying grounded is the only way to withstand great pressure. When the neutron stars orbit each other, they ripple the fabric of space. These are gravitational waves. They are silent waves in the void. They pass through the earth. They pass through you. They press and stretch space by a tiny amount. You do not feel them. Imagine a boat moving on a large lake far away. A small wave travels across the water. It gently rocks your canoe near the shore. You barely notice the motion, but you are connected to the boat. The water connects you. The stars connect to us. The distance does not matter. The movement travels. You could say that we are all floating on the same silent ocean, feeling the ripples of distant events. We study these stars to understand the extremes of nature. They are the dense archives of the galaxy. They hold the history of matter. They sit in the dark and wait. They are patient teachers. Think of an old library book. It is heavy. It smells of dust. It sits on the shelf for years. It holds knowledge. It does not need to be read to be valuable. It just is. The neutron star is this book. It is written in gravity and light. We read it slowly. We learn its secret. We close our eyes and let the knowledge settle. It is a reminder that in the deepest silence, the most profound truths are found. Deep inside the core, pressure may press neutrons into a sea of quarks. This state is called strange matter. It is a liquid more dense than the nucleus of an atom. The individual identities of the particles are lost. They dissolve completely. They blend into a single vast sea. Imagine a bag of clay balls in different colors. You press them together till they merge. The distinct shapes disappear. The colors mix into one. There are no gaps left. There is only one smooth substance. The star holds the secret deep within its shell. It hides the complexity under a hard surface. It keeps the mixture safe from the outside world. It is a reminder that at the deepest level, all distinct things eventually merge into one unified whole. And neutrons start moving through gas creates a bow wave. It pushes the interstellar clouds ahead of it. The gas piles up in a curve. It glows from the friction. The star does not touch the cloud directly. It pushes with its wind. Imagine walking through a field of tall, dry grass. You do not stop. The grass parts before you. It bends away to let you pass. You leave a path behind. The air settles after you move on. The star moves through the galaxy like a silent ship. It clears away. It travels alone but affects everything in its path. In this sense, we see that we can shape our environment simply by moving steadily through it. Old neutron stars can be spun up again by falling there. They are called millisecond pulsars. They were still and silent. Then they gather from a companion. They wake up. They spin faster than a machine. The energy returns. Imagine a pendulum that has stopped swinging. It hangs still. You give it a gentle push. It starts to move. The rhythm comes back. The clock begins to tick again. The silence is broken. The star is given a second life. It shines once more in the dark. It remembers its old speed. This reveals that even after a long silence, it is possible to find a new and vibrant rhythm. A neutron star is essentially a single city-sized atomic nucleus. It is the largest atom in the universe. The forces that usually rule the tiny world of atoms rule this giant sphere. Gravity and nuclear force work together. Imagine holding a single grain of sand. It is small. It is hard. Now imagine that grain expanding until it fills the entire horizon. The structure is the same. The rules are the same. Only the scale has changed. The star connects the very small to the very large. It bridges the gap. It sits in the middle of physics. You could say that the great structures of the world are just reflections of the smallest parts. If you get too close to a neutron star, gravity pulls your feet harder than your head. You would be stretched into a thin line. This is the tidal force. It aligns every atom. It straightens every curve. The pull is vertical and absolute. Imagine a piece of clay on a potter's wheel. The hands pull it up. It becomes tall. It becomes slender. It loses its bulk. The star demands this alignment. It removes the width. It leaves only the height. You become a thread in the void. It is a reminder that sometimes we must be stretched thin to find our true and upright alignment. The galaxy is filled with 1 billion cool neutron stars that we cannot see. They have cooled down. They do not pulse. They float in the dark between the bright stars. They are silent presences. They have mass but no light. Imagine standing in a dark forest at night. You cannot see the trees, but you know they are there. You feel their presence. They surround you. You watch without eyes. The universe is crowded with these heavy, silent stones. They are the quiet majority. They drift in peace. In this sense, we see that the most significant presence is often the one that makes no sound at all. Even a cold neutron star glows faintly with X-rays. It releases the last memory of its formation. The surface is hundreds of thousands of degrees, but compared to its birth, it is freezing. It is fading. Imagine a stone taken from a fire. You place it on the cold ground. Hours later, it is still warm to the touch. It remembers the flame. The star remembers the supernova. It holds onto the warmth. It shares it slowly with the vacuum. It is a gentle release. You could say that we all carry lingering warmth from the events that created us. The rotation of the star turns the space around it. This is called frame dragging. The vacuum itself is pulled along with the spin. Space is not a fixed stage. It is a fluid. It whirls. Imagine a spoon spinning in a cup of thick honey. The honey moves with the spoon. It spirals near the center. The star stirs the cosmos. It does not spin alone. It takes the environment with it. The connection is physical. The space yields to the mass. It wraps around the object. This reveals that when we move with conviction, the world around us moves in harmony with our path. The magnetic field funnels charged particles down to the polar caps. They hit the surface with immense speed. The impact creates bright spots of X-ray light. It is a constant cascade. Imagine standing in a dark field during a storm. The rain falls in a specific spot. It falls against the ground. It soaks the earth. The rest of the field is dry. But here, the energy pours down. The star has these hot spots. They glow in the darkness. They are the footprints of the magnetic lines. The energy is focused. It does not scatter. It goes exactly where it is guided. It follows the invisible tracks. It is a reminder that when energy is concentrated on a single point, it creates a light that can be seen across the void. Gas falling toward the star does not fall straight down. It spirals. It forms a flat disk. The layers of gas brush against each other. Friction heats them to millions of degrees. They shine brightly before they vanish. Imagine warming your hands on a cold night. You rub your palms together. The movement creates heat. The faster you rub, the warmer they get. The cold leaves your skin. The gas experiences this friction. It crowds together. It brushes against its neighbors. It glows from the effort. It prepares to enter the star. It gives up its energy before the final fall. In this sense, we see that friction and resistance are often the sources of the brightest light before the end. The spinning star creates a wind of particles. This wind pushes against the surrounding gas. It carves out a cavity in the nebula. It inflates a bubble of high energy. Imagine blowing smoke into still air. The smoke expands. It pushes the air aside. It creates a shape that hangs in the room. It lingers. A star breathes out this wind. It clears a space in the galaxy. It pushes back the dust. It creates a shell around itself. The silent star is still active. It shapes its home. It does not sit idly. It continues to work. You could say that our influence continues to expand outward long after the initial event has passed. Sometimes the smooth rotation of the star stutters. This is called a glitch. The interior liquid transfers angular momentum to the crust. The star spins faster for a brief moment. Then it slowly recovers. Imagine walking down a long, straight road. You maintain a steady pace. Suddenly, you trip. Your feet move fast to catch you. You stumble forward, and you find your rhythm again. You continue walking. The road is the same. The star has this moment of pause. It just sits balanced. It corrects the difference. The physics aligns once more. The long silence returns. This reveals that even in a system of perfect order, a momentary stumble is necessary death. The exact nature of the deepest core remains a mystery. Our equations break down. We have theories, but no proof. The matter is too dense to replicate. It is a locked box. Imagine finding an old chest in an attic. It is heavy. It is sealed with iron. You cannot open it. You can only guess what is inside. You shake it. It makes no sound. The star is this chest. It keeps its center hidden. It defies our curiosity. It demands respect. We observe the outside, but the inside belongs to the star alone. It is private. It is a reminder that some secrets are meant to remain kept safe from the eyes of the world. When the stars meet, they spray heavy atoms into space. This dust mixes with clouds of. It becomes part of new solar systems. It ends up in planets. It ends up in our veins. Imagine a farmer sowing seeds in a plowed field. He throws them wide. They land in the dirt. They are buried. They wait. Eventually they grow. The meeting sows the universe with metal. It plants the seeds of complexity. It enriches the empty void. We are the harvest of that ancient crash. We'll carry the debris. In this sense, we see that we are physically connected to the intense history of the cosmos. Light particles rise to leave the surface. They lose energy as they climb out of the gravity well. Their color shifts. They look redder to a distant eye. It is a steep ascent. Imagine hiking up a tall mountain. The air gets thin. Your legs feel heavy. You move slowly. You have to work for every step. The view at the top is different because of the effort. The light fights this climb. It carries the mark of the climb. It is soft when it reaches us. It tells a story of escape. It survives the pull. You could say that the journey out of the depths changes the very nature of who we are. In the far future, the last neutron star will go dark. It will cease to shine. It will become a black dwarf. The universe is not yet old enough for this to happen. We are still in the early days. Imagine a campfire burning down. The flames are gone. The coals are red. Then they turn gray. Finally they are golden black. The night claims them. The star waits for this final stage. It is patient. It has billions of years left. It glows in the meantime. It watches the era of stars. It waits for the true night. This reveals that everything is moving slowly toward a final, perfect, and everlasting peace. If we removed the empty space from every human being on Earth, the entire population would fit into a dense volume the size of a sugar cube. This is the density of a neutron star. Atoms are almost entirely void. The star removes this void. It closes the distance between particles. Imagine a large, empty auditorium. The people are scattered in the back rows. Then the walls move in. The ceiling drops. Everyone is brought to the center. There's no more room to be apart. The crowd becomes a single, solid object. The gaps are gone. The isolation ends. It is a reminder that what keeps us separate is often just empty space, and underneath it all, we are made of the same close substance. Pulsars are so reliable that we use them to draw a map on the Voyager spacecraft. They serve as the GPS of the galaxy. Their flashes are unique fingerprints in the dark. A traveler can use them to find Earth. Imagine a sailor on a foggy ocean. He cannot see the shore, but he sees the lighthouses sweeping the water. He counts the seconds between the flashes. He knows where he is. The dark water is no longer a mystery. The stars provide a grid. They offer a path home. They stand still while we move. In this sense, we see that having fixed points of reference allows us to wander without ever truly being lost. A neutron star is the most perfect sphere in the universe. The gravity is so intense that it pulls any bump down instantly. The variations in height are less than the width of a human hair. It is smoother than a billiard ball. Imagine a rough stone tumbling in a river. For 1,000 years, the water rushes over it. The edges wear down. The rough spots vanish. It becomes round. It becomes polished. It feels perfect in your hand. The star has undergone this process. The pressure has erased the flaws. It is geometrically pure. You could say that intense pressure is simply the universe's way of polishing away the imperfections. If you stood on the surface and looked up, the horizon would not look flat. Because gravity bends light, the horizon would look like it is rising up to meet you. You would feel like you are standing in the bottom of a shallow bowl. The stars surround you. The sky above is small. Imagine sitting in a deep, comfortable chair. The sides come up around you. You feel enclosed. You feel held. The world outside is partially blocked. You are in a protected space. The geometry of the star creates a nest. It wraps you in its own mass. This reveals that Truman feels like being gently enclosed by something much larger than yourself. The magnetic field of the star acts like a brake. As it spins, the field drags through the plasma of space. This creates resistance. The star slowly loses its speed. It is a cosmic friction. Imagine riding a bicycle down a hill. You let your feet hang down. They brush against the pavement. The friction slows the wheels. The ride becomes steady. The wild speed is tamed. The star feels this drag. It fights the vacuum. It gradually calms down. The frantic rotation of youth gives way to a measured pace. It is a reminder that resistance is not an enemy, but a force that brings us to a steady and manageable rhythm. Some pulsars of their companion stars. The high-energy wind hits the nearby planet or star. It strips away the gas. It blows the material into the void. The companion slowly disappears. Imagine a block of ice sitting next to a warm fire. The ice does not melt into a puddle. It turns to mist. It rises into the chimney. It becomes part of the air. The fire remains. The ice fades. The pulsar is the fire. It claims the space. It removes what is weak. It leaves only itself. In this sense, we see that proximity to great power often requires a total transformation of form. The interior of the star creates particles that cannot exist anywhere else. In the extreme density, matter finds new ways to be. Hyperonzen-Painsvei-4. These are exotic states. They are heavy and strange. They are stable only under the press. Imagine a diver going deep into the ocean. The pressure builds. The nitrogen in the blood changes. The body behaves differently. The rules of the surface do not apply. The deep creates its own reality. The star is a laboratory of the impossible. It harbors the rare and the strange. It protects them with weight. You could say that deep within the heaviest burdens, we often find the most unique and rare parts of ourselves. Once a star collapses into a neutron star, it can never go back. It cannot expand again. The change is permanent. The structure is locked. The atoms are fused. There is no reverse gear for this gravity. Imagine baking a clay pot in a kiln. The fire is hot. The clay hardens. It changes chemically. You cannot turn it back into soft mud. It is set. It is strong. It has a final shape. The star accepts its new form. It does not try to be a gas cloud again. It stands firm in its new identity. This reveals that there is peace in accepting that we have been changed forever by the events of our past. The rotation of a pulsar is one of the most stable phenomena in nature. It rivals the precision of atomic clocks. The star keeps perfect time. It does not speed up. It does not slow down. Imagine a metronome ticking in a quiet room. Tick, tick, tick. The rhythm is exact. It divides the silence into equal parts. You can rely on it. The universe changes, but the beat remains. The star is a steady anchor in the flow of time. It marks the passing of the eons with absolute certainty. It never misses a step. It is a reminder that in a chaotic world, consistency is a form of deep and quiet power. The rapid spin of the star pushes its equator outward. The sphere is not perfect. It is slightly wider at the middle. It bulges against the press of gravity. The centrifugal force fights the inward pull. Imagine a ball of soft dough spinning on a table. As its pins, it flattens. It becomes a disk. It stretches out. The star balances these two desires. One forsposes, one force throws out. The shape is the compromise. It holds this posture for millions of years. It finds a stable form in the tension. In this sense, we see that our shape is often defined by the balance between holding on an angle. Deep within the crust, atomic nuclei become saturated with neutrons. It cannot hold anymore. The particles begin to leak out. This is called the neutron drip. The neutrons flow freely between the atoms. Imagine a sponge soaked in water. You squeeze it. The water escapes. It fills the spaces between your fingers. It connects the dry parts. The boundary between the inside and the outside dissolves. The solid lattice is bathed in this liquid. The structure is permeated by its own excess. It is a seamless transition from solid to liquid. This reveals that under enough pressure, even the hardest boundaries eventually become permeable. Some neutron stars do not send out radio waves. They are silent to our usual ears. They only emit high-energy gamma rays. For decades, they were invisible to us. They sat in the dark unnoticed. Imagine a person standing in the corner of a room. They do not speak. They do not move. You think the room is empty, but they are watching. They are present. Their energy is internal. They do not feel the need to broadcast in a common frequency. They signal only in the highest spectrum. They wait for the right receiver. You could say that silence in one language may be a blinding light in another. See, neutron stars in orbit will slowly spiral inward. They lose energy as they circle. The distance between them shrinks. The gravity pulls them closer. It is a slow and inevitable dance. Imagine walking in a wide circle in a snowy field. With every step, you steps lightly inward. The spiral tightens. The center approaches. You cannot stop the momentum. The path is set. The stars are destined to meet. They share a fate. The space between them is consumed by the motion. They are drawn together by the weight of their own existence. It is a reminder that attraction, given enough time, eventually removes all distance. In the strongest magnetic fields, atoms are deformed into long cylinders. They are usually round spheres, but the force squeezes them. They become thin needles. They stack side by side. The chemistry of the star changes. Imagine a handful of marbles. You press them until they become long rods. You pack them into a bundle. They fit together differently. They align perfectly. The structure becomes linear. The atoms surrender their natural shape. They conform to the lines of the field. They find a new way to be solid. In this sense, we see that the environment we live in dictates the shape we must take to survive. Matter falling onto the star releases potential energy. This energy is converted into pure heat. The efficiency is awe-inspiring. It is far more powerful than nuclear fusion. A marshmallow dropped on the surface would release the energy of a massive event. Imagine a stone falling into a deep well. It falls for a long time. It hits the water with a loud impact. The impact shakes the walls. On the star, the fall is deep. The impact is absolute. The matter arrives with great speed. It delivers its message instantly. The surface absorbs the blow. This reveals that even a small thing can have a massive impact if it has traveled a long way to get there. The crest of the star is not a single solid block. It has layers. The outer shell is iron. Below that, the elements get heavier. The structure changes with depth. It becomes more neutron-rich. Imagine a heavy quilt on a bed. The top layer is patterned cotton. The middle is thick wool. The bottom is soft down. Each layer has a job. Each layer feels different, but they act as one cover. They shield the sleeper. The star wraps its core in these heavy blankets. It protects the center with layers of increasing density. You could say that we protect our deepest selves by building layers of resilience around the core. The speed of sound inside a neutron star is nearly half the speed of light. The matter is incredibly stiff. If you push one side, the other side moves almost instantly. There is no delay. There is no ripple. The vibration travels through the dense sea immediately. Imagine a steel rod connecting to distant points. You tap one end. The other end feels it now. The connection is absolute. The star acts as a single solid thought. It does not hesitate. It does not wait for the message to travel. It is already there. It has a rigid unity. In this sense, we see that true connection means there is no distance between the parts of the whole. Eventually, the stars, the slowly to generate radio beams. This is known as the death line. The voltage drops. The mechanism fails. The lighthouse bulb burns out. The beam vanishes from the sky. The star is still there, but it is now quiet. It no longer calls out to the galaxy. Imagine a worker finishing a long shift. He turns off the machine. The hum stops. The lights go down. He sits in the quiet. The work is done. The star retires into the shadows. It rests in the void. It is a reminder that there is a time for activity and a time for the silence that follows. Gravity separates the chemical elements on the surface. The lighter atoms float. The heavier ones sink. But iron dominates. It forms a pure, liquid ocean on the crust. It is clean. There is no debris. There is no mixture. Imagine a pool of mercury on a table. It is silver. It is heavy. It pushes all the dust away. The surface of the star reflects the void. It is simple. It is elemental. It creates a perfect shield against the complex interior. It offers a smooth face to the universe. This reveals that under great pressure, all impurities are removed, leaving only what is essential. There is an invisible boundary where the neutron star's gravity overpowers its companion. This is called the Roche load. Gas crosses the line. It leaves its home. It falls toward the denser object. It cannot go back. Imagine pouring water from a pitcher. The water leaves the lip. It falls into the glass. It belongs to the glass now. The stream is steady. The transfer is silent. The star drinks the material. It claims what enters its territory. The boundary is strict. You could say that to belong to something greater, you must first cross the line of separation. The magnetic field lines can become twisted and tangled. As stress builds up, the lines are stretched like thick rubber bands. They pull tight. Then they snap. They reconnect in a simpler shape. A burst of energy leaves. The tension is gone. The star relaxes. Imagine a knot in your muscle. It is tight. It hurts. Then the muscle releases. The knot dissolves. You feel the warmth of relief. The star fixes its own posture. It removes the stress. It returns to a comfortable state. It is a reminder that sometimes things must break apart to find a more comfortable alignment. An object dropped from a great height hits the surface at half the speed of light. There is no air resistance. There is no slow drift. The fall is a rush. The impact is immediate. The object becomes part of the crust instantly. Imagine a raindrop hitting a lake. It merges. It disappears. The surface calms down quickly. The star swallows the mass. It does not hesitate. It takes what is given. The union is swift but brief. Then the silence returns. The object is home. This reveals that the final arrival is often swift, merging the traveler with the destination. The mass of the star creates a deep well in the fabric of space-time. The star sits at the bottom. The space around it slopes down. Everything rolls toward the center. It is a steep valley in the dark. Imagine a heavy ball sitting on a soft mattress. The fabric curves. It cradles the weight. If you place a marble near it, the marble rolls in. The star rests in this depression. It hugs the space. It bends the room to fit shape. It is comfortable in its depth. In this sense, we see that having substance inevitably shapes the world around you. The core of the star cannot hold on to heat efficiently. The particles are packed tight to vibrate. They cannot store the energy. The heat flows right through them. It leaves the center. It moves to the surface. Imagine a stone in a cold wind. The wind strips the warmth away. The stone cannot keep it. It becomes as cold as the air. The star does not hoard its fire. It releases it. It becomes transparent to the temperature. It allows the heat to pass. It is a reminder that true strength is not about holding on, but about letting things pass through you. The escape velocity from a neutron star is remarkably close to the speed of light. To leave the surface, you must move faster than anything we can build. The gravity creates a high wall around the star. It keeps everything inside. Imagine being in a deep valley with steep, smooth sides. You cannot climb out. You do not try. You simply sit at the bottom. The walls protect you from the wind. The world outside is far away. The star accepts its boundaries. It holds its substance close. It does not scatter its energy. It is a reminder that there is a deep peace in accepting that we are exactly where we are meant to stay. The crust of the star acts like a single, giant crystal. The ions are locked into a perfect grid. They form rows and columns that stretch for kilometers. It is the most ordered structure in nature. Imagine a tiled floor that covers the entire world. Every tile is in its place. Nothing is crooked. Nothing is loose. You walk across it. It feels solid and reliable under your feet. The star organizes itself against the complexity. It builds a framework of total stability. It resists change. In this sense, we see that finding a rigid and orderly structure is a way to survive the crushing weight of existence. When a pulsar spins, the beam of light only hits us for a fraction of a second. The rest of the time, there is darkness. The pulse is brief. The silence is long. We wait for the signal. Imagine a lighthouse on a distant cliff. The light sweeps by. Flash. Then the dark returns. The ocean is black. The night is heavy. You watch the dark water. You know the light will return, but the darkness is where you rest. The star spends most of its time in the shadow. The light is just a moment. This reveals that the quiet pauses between events are just as important as the events themselves. Orbiting some of these stars are planets made of crystalline carbon. They are the crushed cores of former stars. They are essentially diamond worlds. They are dense and hard. They sparkle in the dark. Imagine finding a gem buried in the dirt. It is cold. It is sharp. It has survived the pressure of the earth. It has become something clear and beautiful. These planets are the jewels of the void. They are the survivors of destruction. They orbit in silence. They are permanent. You could say that the greatest beauty is often the result of the hardest trials. If you stood on the surface and looked up, the universe would look incredibly bright. The gravity pulls incoming light towards you. It adds energy to the rays. The starlight hits the surface with a blue, intense glow. The sky presses down. Imagine standing under a waterfall. The water flows on your shoulders. It is heavy. It is constant. You feel the weight of the river above you. The star bears the weight of the incoming light. It accepts the energy of the cosmos. It does not turn away. It is a reminder that we must be strong enough to bear the full brightness of the truth falling upon us. The entire interior of the star behaves like a single giant atom. The particles lose their individual nature. They move as one sheet of matter. They share the same state. There is no this particle or that particle. There is only the whole. Imagine a flock of birds turning in the sky. They move together. They do not crash. They act as a single creature. The star achieves this unity on a massive scale. It removes the friction of difference. It creates a perfect harmony of motion. In this sense, we see that true power comes when many separate things decide to move as one. We can tell how old a pulsar is by measuring how fast it is slowing down. The star gets tired, the spin lengthens, the energy fades. It is a clock that winds itself down. Imagine a runner at the end of a long race. The stride shortens, the breath deepens, the pace becomes slow. There is no shame in it. The distance has been covered, the work has been done. A star shows its age with dignity. It allows the rotation to slacken. It eases into a slower life. This reveals that slowing down is not a failure, but a natural and graceful part of a long journey. In the end, the neutron star balances on the edge of total transformation. It sits right on the line between existence and a black hole. It holds its ground against the ultimate dark. It is stubborn. It refuses to vanish. Imagine walking along the edge of a cliff. The drop is deep, the wind is strong. You stand firm, you not fall, you keep your footing. The star maintains this difficult balance for eternity. It exists on the precipice. It is a monument to resistance. It is a reminder that as long as we hold our ground, we have not yet lost the fight. Every neutron is identical to every other neutron in the universe. Inside the star, trillions of them are packed together. There is no way to tell them apart. They lose their individuality. They become a collective mass. Imagine a vast desert of white sand. Every grain is the same size. Every grain is the same shape. You pick one up, you drop it back, it disappears into the hole. The star is a desert of particles. It is a place of absolute uniformity. There are no special parts. There are no unique features. the many become one. It is a reminder that at the fundamental level, we are all made of the exact same simple dust. Most neutron stars will never be seen by human eyes. Their beams of light miss the Earth entirely. They sweep across the empty void. They signal to no one. We only know they exist because of the few that point our way. Imagine standing in a dark field at night. Acre drives past on a distant road. The headlights cut through the dark, but they do not shine on you. You remain in the shadow. The car passes, the silence returns. The star continues its lonely rotation. It does not need an audience. It shines regardless of who is watching. In this sense, we see that true worth exists even when it is not recognized or seen. The magnetic field is frozen into the crust of the star. It cannot move or shift easily. It is locked in place by the conductive matter. The field and the star move as one body. Imagine a drawing in wet cement. The cement hardens. The drawing is now part of the stone. It cannot be erased. It cannot be changed. It is set forever. The star carries this imprint. It holds on to its history. The magnetic lines are the marks of its birth. They are rigid. They define the path of the energy. This reveals that the events of our past harden over time to become the unchangeable structure of our character. As the star spins, it drags the fabric of space-time with it. This effect is known as frame dragging. The space itself becomes a whirlpool. It is not a passive stage. It twists around the heavy center. Imagine stirring a cup of thick cream. The spoon spins, the cream falls. The motion spreads outward. The liquid near the edge begins to turn. The star affects the environment simply by being active. It pulls the cosmos into its dance. It changes the rules of movement for anything near it. You could say that a strong enough presence inevitably turns the world in its direction. The surface gravity is so strong that it separates elements by weight almost instantly. Hydrogen floats to the top, helium sits below, iron sinks to the bottom. The atmosphere is perfectly sorted. It is an uneven, orderly stack. Imagine a jar of boiling water. You shake it, it is cloudy. You set it down. Slowly, the layers separate. The oil rises, the water clears. The line between them is sharp. The star organizes its chaos. It does not allow mixing, it enforces clarity. It puts everything in its proper place. It is a reminder that given enough time and pressure, clarity will naturally emerge from confusion. A neutron star has no internal fusion to generate new heat. It survives only on the residual heat of its collapse. It is slowly spending its savings. It glows, but the fire is out. The bank is closing. Imagine a stone that has been sitting in the sun all day. Evening comes, the air gets cold. The stone remains warm. It radiates heat into your hand. It offers comfort. But it is not creating energy. It is simply sharing what it gathered. The star is this stone. It gives its warmth to the cold universe. This reveals that we can continue to offer light and warmth long after the initial fire has gone out. If you were to drop a marshmallow onto a neutron star, the impact would release a vast amount of energy. The gravity accelerates the object to incredible speeds. The landing is intense. The object is transformed. Imagine a drop of water falling from a great height onto a flat rock. It hits hard, it disperses. It becomes a mist. It is no longer a drop. The star accepts the offering. It converts matter into pure flash. It transforms the gentle into the powerful. The soft becomes hard. In this sense, we see that the outcome of an event depends heavily on the gravity of the situation. In the far future, all neutron stars will cool down completely. They will become cold, dark spheres. They will drift unseen in the galaxy, and they will be the silent monuments of a bright past. The noise will end, the pulsing will stop. Imagine an empty theater after the play is over. The actors are gone, the lights are off. The seats are still, the echoes have faded. The room is at peace. The star waits for this final act. It is not sad, it is simply the end of the show. It is a reminder that silence is the final and most permanent state of all things. In normal matter, atoms are mostly empty space. If an atom were the size of a stadium, the nucleus would be a marble in the center. A neutron star removes this emptiness. It forces the electrons into the nucleus. The stadium collapses onto the marble. Imagine a room filled with balloons. They take up space, they touch the walls. Then the air is removed. The balloons shrink, they become small knots of rubber. They lie on the floor. The room is now empty. The star has done this to the matter. It has squeezed out the void. It leaves only the substance. It is a reminder that what we perceive as solid is often mostly space, waiting to be condensed into truth. The magnetic field of a neutron star is capable of polarizing the vacuum itself. This is a quantum effect known as vacuum birefringence. The empty space acts like a prism. It splits the light passing through it. It gives the nothingness a structure. Imagine looking through a pane of old, wavy glass. The view outside is distorted. The trees look bent, the light curves. The glass changes the world you see. The star puts this lens over the cosmos. It forces the light to follow a pattern. It organizes the void. In this sense, we see that even emptiness can be given a shape if the influence is strong enough. As a neutron star gains mass, it actually gets smaller. Gravity pulls the particles closer together. The sphere shrinks, it becomes tighter. This is the opposite of what we expect. Usually, adding more makes things bigger. Here, adding more makes things denser. Imagine wrapping a coat around yourself in the cold. You pull it tight, you hunch your shoulders, you curl inward. You occupy less space, but you feel more secure. The star hugs itself. It retreats into its own center. It becomes compact. This reveals that true growth sometimes looks like a contraction into a smaller, stronger form. The surface of the star is a landscape of iron. It is the ash of the nuclear fire. The element is stable. It does not burn. It does not fuse. It just sits there. Imagine an old anchor resting on the seabed. It is heavy. It is rusted. It has stopped moving. The currents flow over it. The fish swim by. But the iron remains. It has reached its final state. It is at rest. The star is covered in this heavy blanket. It is a shell of permanence. It shows the restless core. You could say that we eventually find a stable skin to protect the fluid nature of our hearts. It has a massive moment of inertia. It wants to keep moving. It resists any change to its rhythm. The momentum is stored deep in the heavy fluid. Imagine a large stone go rolling down a hill. It is heavy, it presses the grass. If you try to stop it, it pushes you back. It carries its own energy. It is determined. The star possesses this stubborn will. It continues its rotation through the ages. It does not tire. It is a reminder that once a cycle is set in motion, it possesses a power that is hard to deny. Gravity on the star is a great leveler. It does not allow for tall structures. It pulls everything down to the lowest possible point. The energy of the stars is the minimum state. Imagine pouring water onto a pile of sand. The water flows down. It fills the gaps, smooths the surface. It finds the bottom. It rests where it is supported. The star enforces this rule. It does not allow ovation. It insists on equality. The surface is a perfect, smooth plane. In this sense, we see that finding the lowest point is often the key to finding the most stability. The pressure inside the star is greatest at the very center. It pushes outward against the weight of gravity. It supports the weight of the layers above. It bears the burden of the entire star. Imagine the bottom stone in a tall wall. It carries the weight of every stone above it. It is pressed into the earth. It does not move. It does not complain. It simply holds. The core exists in this state of service. It is a silent foundation. It makes the existence of the surface possible. This reveals that the most critical support is often buried deep where it cannot be seen. We often think of stars as balls of fire, that a neutron star is more like a ball of crystal. The particles are locked in a lattice, and they vibrate in place. They do not flow freely like gas. Imagine a diamond sitting in a velvet box. It is hard, it is clear, it reflects the light. It is structured and cold. The star is this jewel. It is the diamond of the galaxy. It is forged by pressure. It is enduring. It is no longer a cloud of chaos. It is a solid object. It is a reminder that the fires of our past eventually cool into the structure gems of our future. When the supernova occurs, it is rarely a perfect circle. The force is uneven. It pushes the neutron star away. The star is ejected from its home. It travels at millions of kilometers per hour. It leaves the nebula behind. It moves alone into the empty void. It becomes a nomad of the galaxy. It does not look back. It carries its own fire into the cold. It acts as a solitary traveler in the deep night. It is a reminder that sometimes we must leave our origins behind to find our own path. To become this dense, the star must pay a price. During the collapse, a huge amount of mass is converted into energy. It is lost forever. The star becomes lighter than the ingredients that made it. It sacrifices substance for stability. It gives up a part of itself to survive the weight. Imagine carrying a heavy pack, then dropping it to stand upright. The star sheds the weight. It becomes compact. It becomes strong. This reveals that we often have to let go of a part of ourselves to become unbreakable. The star spins fast, but it also wobbles. This is called precession. The axis draws a slow circle in the sky. It is like a spinning top that is about to fall, but the star does not fall. It maintains the secondary rhythm. It is a slow cycle hidden within the fast one. The wobble takes years, the spin takes milliseconds. Both are true, both happen at once. It is a complex dance. You could say that even in a steady life, there are slow shifts in direction that take time to reveal themselves. The neutron star itself is small, the size of a city, but its magnetic influence is vast. The magnetosphere can be larger than our sun. It controls the space for millions of kilometers. It traps particles far from the surface. The star sits in the center, a tiny seed, but its reach is enormous. It commands a huge territory without occupying it. It fills the void with its authority. It is invisible but undeniable. In this sense, we see that your physical size does not determine the size of your impact. The magnetic field is so strong it activates the vacuum. It pulls particles out of nothing. Energy turns into matter. An electron and a positron appear from the empty air. They are born from the stress of the field. The void is not empty, it is waiting to be activated. The star creates a cloud of matter around itself. It weaves a cloak from the silence. It is a constant act of creation. This reveals that even in the greatest emptiness, the potential for new life is always waiting. Matter falling onto the star is guided by the magnetic lines. It does not fall randomly. It is funneled to the poles. It flows in a narrow stream. It creates a hot column of gas. The landing is precise. The energy is focused. Imagine pouring into a funnel. It piles up in one spot. It does not scatter. The star directs the flow. It controls the intake. It brings order to the chaotic fall. It is a reminder that channeling our energy into a single point creates the greatest intensity. The crust and the liquid core spin at different speeds. They rub against each other. This friction creates heat from the inside. The star keeps itself warm through its own movement. It does not need an outside fire. It generates thermal energy from the interaction between its layers. The resistance becomes warmth, the tension becomes a glow. It maintains its temperature in the cold dark. You could say that the internal conflicts we face can generate the heat that keeps us alive. There is a distance from the star where the magnetic lines would have to move at the speed of light to keep up. This is the speed limit. Nothing can go faster. The field lines break. They cannot hold on. The connection releases. The star's influence sends here. It is a hard boundary. The laws of physics draw a line in the sand. The star accepts this limit. It operates within its circle. It does not try to exceed the possible. This reveals that accepting our natural boundaries is the only way to maintain our integrity. Hydrogen gas that accumulates on the surface does not remain a gas. Under the intense gravity, it is pressed into a metallic layer. It becomes a solid fuel. The pressure builds until the atoms fuse. The entire surface ignites at once in a sudden flash of X-rays. It consumes the fuel in seconds. And then the fire goes out, the ash settles. The accumulation begins again. Imagine a field of dry grass waiting for a spark. The fire sweeps across it, the ground turns black. Then the grass grows back, waiting for the next fire. The star breathes in this cycle of accumulation and release. It is a reminder that even in a dormant state, pressure can build until a transformation is inevitable. The vacuum of space around the star is not truly empty. The magnetic field is so strong it pulls virtual particles into existence. It creates a ghost-like cloud of matter and antimatter. The nothingness becomes thick. It acts like a lens. It splits the light passing through it. Imagine looking through a window on a rainy day. The glass is wet, The view is warped. The light bends in streaks, the clear air is gone. The star surrounds itself with this heavy, distorted veil. It changes the texture of the space it occupies. In this sense, we see that a powerful presence can fill even the emptiest T void with its influence. The matter inside a neutron star is the stiffest substance in the universe. If you touched it with force, it would ring with a frequency too high to hear. The vibration travels almost instantly. The connection between the parts is rigid. There is no give, there is no softness. Imagine a block of frozen iron in the deep winter. It is hard, it is unyielding. If you touch it, it feels brittle. The star is a frozen ocean of particles. It does not bend for anyone. It holds its form against the pressing dark. This reveals that to withstand the greatest pressures, one must become unyielding and firm. Because of the extreme gravity, the star acts as a gravitational lens. It bends the light from stars behind it. The background stars appear as rings or arcs around the neutron star. The view is distorted by the weight. Imagine looking at a candle through the bottom of a wine glass. The flame stretches, it curves into a circle. The glass shapes the image. The neutron star is a heavy piece of glass in the sky. It curves the view of the universe. It brings the background into the foreground. It is a reminder that how we see the world is oft unshaped by the heavy things that stand in our way. The crust of the star is under immense strain. The magnetic field fights the solid lattice. The two forces wrestle for millions of years. Eventually, the crust shifts. It breaks like a dry twig. The energy shakes the star. The magnetic field rearranges itself into a simpler shape. Imagine an angled rope being pulled tight. Suddenly, the knot slips. The rope straightens, the tension is gone. The line is clear. The star endures this fracture to find a lower energy state. It breaks to become calm. You could say that sometimes a sudden shift is necessary to untangle the knots of the past. If you dropped a pen from 1 meter above the surface, it would hit the ground in a microsecond. The impact would dissolve the object. The speed is dictated by the gravity. There is no time to float. There is no air resistance to slow you down. The fall is instant. Imagine letting go of a stone. Before you can blink, it is part of the ground. The separation between the fall and the landing is gone. The star brings everything to a sudden halt. It demands immediate tunya. In this sense, we see that under the influence of a great force, the journey and the destination become one. The star is the ultimate compressor. It takes the remnants of a giant star and squeezes it into a ball. It saves the mass but changes the shape. It simplifies the complex. It reduces the structure to its bare essentials. Imagine taking a large, ornate house and condensing it into a single block of stone. The rooms are gone, the windows are gone. Only the material remains. The star is this block. It is the raw ingredient of existence without the decoration. It is dense and true. This reveals that when everything superficial is removed, only that heavy truth remains. In the very long term, the star's rotation will stop. The heat will radiate away, the magnetic field will decay. It will become a dark, cold rock floating in the void. It will be invisible. It will drift through the galaxy for trillions of years. It will outlast the sun, will outlast the earth. Imagine a stone buried deep in the earth. The civilizations above rise and fall. The forests grow and burn. The stone stays in the dark. It does not change. It waits. The neutron star is this eternal stone. It is a reminder that after all the noise and light of life, the final state is a long, enduring silence. Electrons caught in the magnetic field spiral at nearly the speed of light. As they turn, they emit a specific type of blue light called synchrotron radiation. The particles do not choose their path. They are gripped by the field. They follow the invisible lines exactly. Imagine driving on a winding road at night. You cannot leave the lane, you follow the curve. The headlights sweep across the trees. The electrons trace these curves in the dark. They glow as they travel. They create a spiral of light in the void. They surrender to the magnetic track. It is a reminder that there is a certain grace in following the path that has been laid out for you. There is a strict limit to how heavy a neutron star can become. It is called the Tolman-Oppenheimer Covenant. If the star exceeds this weight, it cannot support itself. The neutrons give way, the transformation resumes. The star vanishes into a black hole. Imagine a wooden shelf holding heavy books. You add one more volume. The wood grows, it bends. It reaches the breaking point, the structure fails. The star respects this limit. It exists on the edge of failure. It holds exactly as much as it can, no more. This reveals that knowing your own capacity is essential for survival. As the star cools, the interior superfood settles into a frictionless state. The liquid has aeroviscosity. It does not resist motion. Once it starts spinning, it never stops. There is no loss of energy. Imagine a cup of tea that you stir once. The liquid swirls. You put the spoon down. You come back in a year. The tea is still swirling. It is still moving. The core of the star preserves this motion. It protects the momentum. It does not let the energy fade away. In this sense, we see that when we remove the sources of our energy can last forever. The gravitational pull is so intense that it reach-fists the light leaving the surface. The light has to work hard to climb out of the well. It loses energy. I deem that starts as X-rays might reach us as ultraviolet light. It is tired light. Imagine throwing a ball straight up. It goes fast at first, then it slows down. It hangs in the air. It works against gravity. The light fights this same battle. It arrives at our eyes exhausted. It has been stretched by the journey. It is softer than when it began. You could say that a difficult journey often softens the nature of what travels it. Neutron stars are often sent away from their birthplace by the supernova explosion. They travel alone through the galaxy at high speeds. They leave the nebula behind. They drift into the empty spaces between the arms of the galaxy. Imagine a solitary boat on a calm ocean at night. There is no land in sight. There are no other ships. There is only the water and the sky. The star is this boat. It is a nomad. It carries its heavy burden in silence. It does not need a companion. It is complete in itself. This reveals that there is a dignity in walking a solitary path. The voltage drop across the polar cap of a pulsar can be trillions of volts. This electric potential pulls particles from the surface. It accelerates them into space. A star is a giant battery. It is charged and ready. Imagine the air before a thunderstorm. You feel the static on your skin, the hair on your arm stands up. The tension is palpable. The sky is holding a great charge. The star holds this tension permanently. It is static and powerful. It waits to release its energy. It is a reminder that great potential often it's quietly waiting for the moment to be released. Because the star is so dense, it resonates like a bell when it is disturbed. But the tone is incredibly high and short-lived. The vibrations fade out almost instantly. The matter is too stiff to wobble for long. Imagine apping a solid block of lead. It makes a dull thud. It does not vibrate. It absorbs the energy. It becomes still again immediately. The star refuses to tremble. It accepts the impact and returns to silence. It stabilizes itself within milliseconds. In this sense, we see that a solid foundation allows us to recover from disturbances almost instantly. The magnetic axis and the rotation axis are rarely the same. As the star spins, the magnetic poles sweep through the sky. They cover a wide area. They do not stay in one place. Imagine a spotlight at a grand opening. It moves across the clouds. It touches the buildings. It sweeps the street. It does not focus on one spot. It shares the light. The star broadcasts its presence to the entire surrounding void. It turns and turns. It scans the darkness. It is a reminder that even if we stand in one place, our influence can still touch every corner of our surroundings. At a specific distance from the star, light can orbit in a perfect circle. This region is called the photon sphere. If you stood there, the light leaving the back of your head would circle the star and return to your eyes. You would see your own back in front of you. The geometry of space is curved into a loop. Imagine walking in a straight line through a heavy mist only to find yourself returning to where you started. The path bends without you turning. The star warps the straight lines of the world. It forces the view to return to its source. It creates a mirror out of the void. It is a reminder that if we look far enough, we often find ourselves staring back at our own beginning. Eventually, a pulsar slows down enough that it can no longer produce radio beams. This boundary is known as the quiet line. The voltage drops, the machine stops, the lighthouse goes dark. The star continues to spin, but it is silent. Imagine a clock that runs out of batteries. The hands stop moving, the ticking ceases. The room becomes quiet. The time is no longer marked. The star enters its retirement. It spins in the privacy of the dark. It is no longer required to signal its presence. It withdraws from the stage. In this sense, we see that there is a time for active work and a time for the quiet rest that follows. Gravity separates the elements on the surface with absolute precision. The lightest atoms float, the heaviest sink. This leaves these a surface of pure liquid iron. It is a flawless ocean of metal. There are no waves, there is no wind to stir it. Imagine a bowl of mercury sitting on a table in an empty house. It is silver, it is still. It reflects the ceiling perfectly. It does not mix with the dust. The star presents this clean face to the universe. It hides the complexity of its core beneath a smooth mass. It is polished by the gravity. This reveals that under enough pressure, all impurities are forced away, leaving only what is essential. When a neutron star has a companion, there is an invisible boundary called the Roche lobe. If the companion's gas crosses this line, it falls onto the neutron star. It cannot go back. The gravity claims it. Imagine pouring water from a pitcher. Once the water leaves the lip, it falls. It belongs to the glass. It cannot return to the pitcher. The stream is steady, the transfer is silent. The neutron star drinks from its neighbor. It takes what crosses the threshold. The boundary is absolute. You could say that to belong to a new world, one must first cross the line of separation. The magnetic field lines of the star can become twisted. They act like thick rubber bands. They stretch, they store energy. Eventually, the tension is too great, they shift. They reconnect in a simpler shape. This releases a massive glow of energy. Imagine a knot in your shoulder. It is tight, it pulls. Then it releases, the muscle relaxes. The tension vanishes. The star fixes its own posture. An angle less the stress. It releases the old energy to find a new comfort. It is a realignment. It is a reminder that sometimes a sudden break is necessary to release the tension of the past. If you dropped a simple stone onto a neutron star, it would hit the surface at half the speed of light. The gravity accelerates it instantly. There is no air to slow it down. The impact would be intense. The stone would be dispersed. Imagine a raindrop falling into a dark ocean. It merges with the water immediately. It loses its shape. It becomes part of the sea. The star swallows the object. It does not hesitate. The separation between the fall and the arrival is gone. The union is instant. In this sense, we see that under the influence of a great force, the journey and the destination become one. The mass of the star creates a deep dent in the fabric of space-time. The star hits at the bottom of this well. The space around it slopes downward. Everything rolls toward the center. It is a steep valley in the dark. Imagine a heavy ball sitting on a soft mattress. The fabric curves, it cradles the weight. If you place a marble near it, the marble rolls in. The star rests in this depression. It hugs the space. It bends the room to fit shape. It is comfortable in its depth. This reveals that having true substance inevitably shapes the world around you. The core of the star is so dense that it cannot hold onto heat. The particles are packed too tightly to vibrate. The heat flows right through them. It escapes to the surface. It leaves the center. The core becomes transparent to the temperature. Imagine a stone in a cold wind. The wind strips the warmth away. The stone cannot keep it. It becomes as cold as the air. The star does not hoard its fire. It releases it. It allows the energy to pass through. It does not cling to what it cannot keep. It is a reminder that true strength is not about holding on, but about letting things pass through you. The radio waves from a pulsar do not arrive all at once. The deep, low frequencies travel slower through the gas of space. The high, sharp frequencies arrive first. The signal is stretched out by the journey. Imagine a choir singing a single chord in a canyon. The high notes reach you instantly. The low notes roll in moments later. The sound is separated by the distance. The star speaks in a staggered rhythm. It tells its story in layers. It is a reminder that the full truth of a message often takes time to arrive completely. If a neutron star spins fast enough, its magnetic field acts like a propeller. It creates a centrifugal barrier. Gas tries to fall in, but it is flung away. It cannot touch the surface. The speed of the rotation protects the star. Imagine a spinning fan in a light rain. The droplets bounce off the blades. The center remains dry. The motion creates a shield. The star refuses to be fed. It pushes the world away with its own momentum. This reveals that maintaining your own rapid pace can keep unwanted things from settling on you. Even these perfect cosmic clocks have small flaws. Astronomers call this timing noise. The rotation wanders slightly over decades. It is not a machine, it is a physical object. It has a liquid center that shifts. Imagine a heart beating. It is steady, but if you listen for a lifetime, there is a tiny flutter. A skipped beat, a moment of hesitation. The star is alive in its own way. It is not rigid, it has moods. You could say that true perfection is an illusion and character is found in the slight irregularities. When a neutron stars orbit each other, they circle a point in empty space. This is the center of mass. Neither star is in the middle, they both move around a void. They lean away from each other. Imagine the dancers holding hands and spinning. They lean back, their weight is balanced. They rotate around a spot where no one is standing. The connection holds them. The center is invisible, but it dictates the path. It is a reminder that the central point of our lives is often something we cannot see, but we always obey. The crust of the star is solid, but it is also elastic. It can bend before it breaks. It holds tension like a drawn bow. The magnetic field pulls on it. The crust resists. It stretches. It endures the strain for years. Imagine a thick branch in a storm. The wind pushes it down. It curves. It resonates. It does not snap immediately. It holds the energy within its fibers. The star is patient with the pressure. It absorbs the stress. In this sense, we see that strength is not just about being hard, but about having the capacity to bend without failing. The beam of a pulsar is very narrow. It covers only a tiny fraction of the sky. To see it, you must be in exactly the right place. If you step to the side, the star disappears. It is still there, it is still shining, but you are in the dark. Imagine a spotlight cutting through a foggy night. It illuminates a single tree, the rest of the forest is black. The light is specific. It is not for everyone, it is for those in the path. This reveals that clarity is often just a matter of standing in the right position. The wind from the pulsar hits the gas of space and creates an energy wave. The two forces collide and stand still. The wind pushes out, the space pushes in. The boundary is frozen. Imagine a river rushing into a calm lake. Where the water meets, there is a standing wave. It ripples but stays in place. The conflict creates a permanent shape. The star defines its territory through this resistance. It creates a wall of energy. You could say that the boundaries of our lives are defined by where our energy meets the resistance of the world. As the star cools, the heat moves in waves from the crust to the core. The surface cools first, the center stays hot. The cold sinks in. It is a slow adjustment. The temperature tries to balance itself. Imagine a stone taken from a fire. The outside turns gray, the heat hides inside. Slowly, the warmth retreats to the very middle. Finally, it is gone. The star internalizes the cold. It accepts the new state. It is a reminder that deep change happens from the outside in, slowly reaching the core. And so, we drift to the end of our quiet journey through the realm of these cosmic lighthouses. We have witnessed the dense hearts of fallen giants, spinning silently in the velvet dark, holding the weight of mountains within a mere city's span. In their immense gravity, we find a strange, grounding comfort. They remind us that even after the most intense chaos, a core remains solid, unshakable, and enduring. Just as the universe finds its balance in this heavy quiet, you can find yours in the stillness of this moment. If you enjoy these quiet journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. There's nothing left to analyze, nothing left to do. Just breathe. Let your eyes grow heavy. Let the steady, rhythmic spin of the neutron stars cradle your dreams. Good night.